As industries like citrus continue to struggle, should Florida look to boost its agricultural output by relying on its coastline? Researchers at the University of Florida are looking at seaweed, whether it could be the next sustainable crop for the Sunshine State. For more on the potential future of seaweed farming in Florida, we're joined by Dr. Ashley Smyth, an associate professor of soil, water, and ecosystem science at UF's Tropical Research and Education Center. Thank you, Dr. Smyth, for joining us.
Hi, great, happy to be here.
So seaweed is a massive crop in several Asian countries where it's in big demand there. Is seaweed a fit for Florida agriculture?
That's what our new project is really looking at. A lot of the work that comes out on seaweed has come from not tropical systems like we have here in Florida. So our work is focused right now on finding out if we're able to culture and grow seaweed that is marketable and could be profitable.
What are you finding right now? I know you're sort of early in the process, but what are you seeing so far?
Yeah, we are just getting started. And so right now what we're doing is we are actually working with our commercial shellfish farmers, because seaweed right now for them is treated as a nuisance. Like it covers their clams, for example. And so they have to go out and spend extra time to remove all that seaweed. And so that seaweed, though, has a lot of potential. It could be really tasty treats. It could be really great at nitrogen storage and actually like have water quality benefits and be used as fertilizer. So right now what we're doing is going to these leases and just characterizing the types of seaweed that we see there. This is our way of saying this seaweed does grow here in Florida. And if it's growing here, it's native, it's natural, then there's a chance to cultivate that. Once we have identified the most common species of seaweed that occur on our shellfish leases, we're then taking it back to the lab and we're going to do some genetics and try to figure out if any of the seaweeds that we have do have really high potential for different commercial operations.
How big is the potential market for seaweed? I think when people think of seaweed, they're probably thinking of, how they might, eat it in sushi, but there's a lot more purposes for it, right?
Yeah, seaweed can be used for a variety of different things, and consumption is actually just a small fraction of that. Seaweeds in cosmetics, seaweeds can be used for pharmaceutical production, and seaweed can actually even be used in packaging material to reduce our reliance on plastics.
I think a lot of people are wondering, since you mentioned nitrogen, what is the impact to the health of our waters and the environment by bringing and farming it to our waters?
So aquaculture is farming in the water, and it is a green industry. It actually does a lot of really great things for our waterways. So we can think of, let's use shellfish for our example here. And shellfish are really great filter feeders. So what they do is they actually clean the water, and they can remove nitrogen in doing that. And they provide tasty treats for us. So it's really a win-win-win. Aquaculture often gets a dirty reputation, like they think of it as a bad thing. But a lot of that actually comes from what we know from other places where it's finfish aquaculture, and it's these big pens where they have to use feed or different medicine to treat the fish. But we don't have that with our shellfish aquaculture. And seaweed would be the same thing. In fact, seaweed aquaculture would provide a benefit for our waters because it sucks up that nitrogen that would otherwise cause those algal blooms and have our waters turn that guacamole colored green that no one wants.
Right, right. What are some of the challenges, though, and risks in farming seaweed? I was talking with my producer earlier, and we were talking about this idea of testing other varieties of seaweed in our waters. Could we then, have the problem of an invasive species of seaweed?
No. We are really working hard to identify and focus on only species that occur naturally and are native to Florida. Those are the only kind of species that we will support for aquaculture production.
I'm not familiar with how you farm seaweed, so share with our audience how actually would these farms, produce the seaweed? What does that process look like?
This is a great question, and one of the things that we're trying to work out here in Florida, there's a variety of different ways that you can culture seaweed. Some people will actually put it on ropes, and so it's big long lines that hang throughout the water, and there's just seaweed attached to that. Some other organizations will put seaweed into different cages, and those cages sit in the water, and then they get tumbled and moved around, and the seaweed just grow in there. And then we also grow seaweed on land. So we have these land-based systems or tanks where we can bring in water from the ocean and help to get the seaweed to grow in a more controlled environment.
And what are the ideal areas for seaweed farms? I often think of, I often go to the East Coast and I see a lot more seaweed there, or it seems to me that I see a lot more there. Are Gulf waters just equally as good as the Atlantic?
Yeah, so that you're absolutely right that a lot of the seaweed work that we have and we see results from are really like Maine and the Pacific Northwest. That's where we think of seaweed from the US. Our goal in our project is to see if we can start to shift that narrative and think about tropical seaweed as a potential source of seaweed for different commodity groups.
So if you can wrap up for us, what you hope to find, what is the hope that you get out of this project, and how far off are we from, figuring out whether this is really a market for us or not?
Yeah, I think we are a long ways away from figuring out if this is really a market. We're just really doing the foundational research and getting that first glimpse into the opportunities. We also have an economist on our project, so we will actually be figuring out, is this really going to be profitable? Because that's really the key here. Like, I can tell you all about the great things that seaweeds can do for our environment, but if it's not profitable to culture them and to have that return on the investment, we might not have that buy-in to actually grow it as an industry. I think that seaweed has a lot of potential, and there's many things that we can do to help ultimately find seaweed here in Florida that we can start to culture, that can support our working waterfront communities and make sure that we are getting these environmental benefits too.
Ashley Smyth with the University of Florida, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. We've got more great content for you, from news to the arts to the environment. So be sure to like and subscribe to WGCU's YouTube channel and follow us on our social media platforms for the stories that matter to you.